give you an example. If you go to East Africa, the number of Chinese in East Africa is crazy, right? They are in East Africa setting up stores, setting up warehouses, setting up industries. And that's because if you go to East Africa, the East Africans are not like Nigerians. They are more laid back. They go to school, come out and look for a job. Those who didn't go to school do petty businesses and petty jobs, right? Now, so the middle class economy is practically run by the Chinese, right? They come into these countries, they buy up land, they build warehouses, they import goods from China in their numbers and flood the market. A couple of weeks ago, I told a story of how the Kenyan government gave licenses to Chinese business people to import tuna, right? But Kenya has a river called, a lake called Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is rich in tuna fish, and that supported for so many years about 100,000 Kenyan families whose fathers or mothers go to this lake, fish tuna, bring it to the seashore and sell them to market women who in turn distribute them all around, Nairobi or different, cities close to Lake Victoria. It was a major source, for local tuna for Kenya, right? Now, these insensitive politicians, this is what I talk about all the time. Insensitive Kenyan politicians decided that the best thing to do was to give the Chinese licenses to import tuna from China. So what did they do? The Chinese started importing chemical laced sardines, of tuna, right? That were cheaper than the local tuna, right? Of course, Africans always like it cheap. Everybody started patronizing the Chinese tuna, right? And so many of these 100,000 families who were making their living from Lake Victoria went out of business, right? They couldn't survive anymore because nobody was buying their own tuna. The citizens preferred to buy the Chinese tuna that wasn't healthy and it had chemical preservatives in them, but it was cheap. And that's what everybody bought. So I'm using that point to explain what happens in East Africa, right? There are East African countries, East and Southern African countries that are so indebted to China right now that the Chinese are beginning to seize some of their national assets because of the amount of money they owe China. In Nigeria, it's a little bit different because of the skilled labor that I talked about, right? Okay. The Chinese are not really thriving in Nigeria because that thing you want to do in Nigeria, Nigerians are already doing it. Igbo people are doing it already, right? You want to come and set up a Chinese store in Nigeria when Nigerians have already gone to China and, bought goods and put them in their stores. So it's really not working for the Chinese very well in Nigeria, but that's what's happening in East Africa. And that's because the Chinese government is encouraging them to go out and open these businesses and giving them loans. Because what happens is that you give them loans to go set up businesses overseas. They repatriate their funds 100% and